Thank you, Chief. My name is Phil Wowak. I'm the Santa Cruz County Sheriff. My role here today is to support our brothers and sisters of the Santa Cruz Police Department. They can't help you until they help themselves. So we've asked them to take the time they need to repair their agency and develop the internal strength to come back and continue to serve you as they have for the last 150 years. What I'm going to do now is give you a very brief recap of the incident yesterday. I'm going to give you an understanding of what we learned overnight. I'm going to give you some new specific information about the suspect. And then I'll take some very brief questions. Following that, our press information officer will come up and give you detailed information as to our next press conference, where we'll release more information, as well as contact information that we want the community to have to give details that they possess that we would like to have to complete this investigation. As we mentioned last night, two officers saw pictured by Chief Vogel were investigators in plain clothes following up on a criminal case that had come to their agency within the last week. There's no such thing as routine police work. However, the information that they possessed and at the time they went out to contact this suspect gave them no suspicion that they would be in danger. So, and I know Butch, and I've known him for 28 years, and he's done this thousands of times. And as Chief Vogel said, one of the most competent, if not the most competent investigator in this agency. So there should be no suspicion or second guessing as to how they wound up where they were. They were just doing their job. In that investigation, they went to an address in the 800 block of Branch 40 Drive to contact the suspect Jeremy Goulet, who we now know is a 35-year-old male who came to Santa Cruz community just months ago. He was the suspect in a misdemeanor sexual assault investigation. Their intent was to contact him and get further information about what he had been accused of. As I mentioned, they were not suspect of any danger with regard to Goulet. We don't yet know all that happened when they first came into contact with Jeremy Goulet. What we do know is what was left in the aftermath, and that was both detectives were killed at the doorstep of Goulet's home. This is new information that we learned as of last night. Following the detectives' individual murders, they were disarmed by Goulet, and their Detective Baker's vehicle was stolen by Goulet. Goulet left the area but remained in the neighborhood. It's our belief that he remained in the neighborhood and stayed within the perimeter due to the overwhelming number of law enforcement officers that were responding to the incident. As we set up a perimeter around the scene and began to gather information as to which officers were down and whether or not aid could be rendered, a second wave of officers gathered together as a unified force from different agencies and began a systematic search for an active shooter. Believing that Goulet could possibly still be in the neighborhood, they began a comprehensive sweep around the crime scene. In that sweep, two separate, if not three separate teams encountered Goulet. Goulet was pushed from the back of his home by the initial responding people at the crime scene to an address on Doyle Street. As Goulet tried to escape on Doyle Street back toward Detective Sergeant Baker's car, which he had parked there, he was encountered by, as I mentioned, a team of officers from my agency and from the Santa Cruz Police Department. Goulet engaged that team in gunfire. They exchanged gunfire, and many of you have seen or heard that captured on video. I'll come back to that at the end, because we really want any of that evidence to help put together our investigation. In that gunfight, Goulet exchanged fire with the officers, and unfortunately, there was a Santa Cruz fire truck, ambulance personnel, and citizens from that area on the street at that time. The exchange of gunfire resulted in Goulet striking the Santa Cruz Fire Department truck multiple times with the weapons that he possessed. Additionally, the fire personnel that were on that truck assisted the citizens that were caught in the area to safety. At least one, if not more, fire department personnel actually took one citizen witness to the ground, trying to save her from possibly being struck by gunfire. Those fire personnel should be absolutely commended for what they did. They were responding to an injured officer down. They came to an area where they could render aid, but also stay out of the scene until they knew it was safe, and they happened to become part of this horrific incident. I want to thank the Santa Cruz Fire Department for their actions in helping save that citizen, and I also want to thank the citizens that were party to that event or witnessed that event, and thank them for their participation with our investigators. What we know now after that incident is that Goulet had made statements to people that were unavailable to the detectives when they responded to this scene. We know now that he was distraught. We know now that he had intentions of potentially harming people and or the police. That's evidenced by not only the murder of our two innocent officers, but by him disarming them. And then, this is new information, when Goulet was discovered on the ground post-shooting, he was wearing body armor. In the initial investigation of that scene, we found Goulet had possessed 3 different handguns as well as the body armor. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that the officers that engaged Goulet stopped an imminent threat to the community and neutralized that problem before it reached out and harmed the people that we're sworn to protect. I don't have specific information, but I can tell you that Goulet has a significant criminal history recently in our jurisdiction and in another state. That information will be available through our press information officer in written format for you to report. More is going to come in this investigation in the coming days. And as I alluded to just a minute ago, we know that community members who witnessed this incident could help us put pieces to the puzzle together and ultimately find out why this occurred. Our investigation into this matter, as I mentioned last night, is threefold. First, it's for us to learn what occurred and how could we prevent this from happening in the future. It's also to help us learn to train internally as to what we can do to better equip ourselves to protect the citizens of this community. And lastly, it's to bring to, or what would have been, the ultimate prosecution of the suspect responsible in this case. That investigation is still ongoing, and it will be ongoing for days and weeks to come. behind me you see all of the chiefs of the Santa Cruz County law enforcement contingency. We stand united in serving our community, protecting our community, and you should know that the Santa Cruz Police Department is an amazing agency that has had a horrific time, and we are here to support them and do their job while they recover. As the chief mentioned, tomorrow we will start moving Santa Cruz officers back into patrol if they are available. So you'll start to see familiar faces. But in the meantime, the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Office, the California Highway Patrol, and the members of all the agencies represented behind me are here to support Santa Cruz City as well as Santa Cruz County. If there are any community members that possess any evidence, video, or other information that they believe could be possibly significant to us, including investigation, we ask you to do two things. Go to the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Office website, scsheriff.com. We're setting up a link on the face page of that website so that citizens can just immediately email investigators as to their contact information and the evidence that they possess. We want to speak to each and every person that has something to help us gain an understanding of what happened yesterday. The other contact is a Monday through Friday 8 to 5 telephone number. That's area code 831-454-2311. I'm going to take some very brief questions now. Please.
Can you say, is it true that Butch is planning to retire on Friday?
I do not know Butch's intentions about his career. Butch has been with the Santa Cruz law enforcement community for decades and was absolutely eligible to retire, but I don't know what his intentions were.
Sir, you mentioned that he disarmed the officers, and there are witnesses who have said that he was using two guns simultaneously. Do you know, did he use their weapons in his defense against the police officers who surrounded him?
That's the purpose of our investigation, is to find out which weapons he used. As I mentioned, at the scene of his death, he possessed 3 weapons. Both officers were unarmed when they were found at his doorstep, and we believe that he took their weapons after his altercation with them.
Suggesting weapons registered to his name? Was there any weapon registered to him? He had a prior weapons offense?
We're still in the process of looking at the weapons that we recovered and comparing them to both police department records and records that were registered to him. It is our belief that 2 of the 3 weapons that he possessed at the scene of his death belonged to the Santa Cruz Police Department, but we haven't confirmed that completely.
What kind of body armor did he have? Was it a vest or what kind of body armor?
It was a standard vest, and we're trying to determine where that vest came from. There is a possibility that it came from standard police equipment that was either in Officer Baker's car or on one of the officers, or he possessed it on his own. That information will be determined today and should be available for press release tomorrow.
Were the slain officers wearing vests? Were the slain officers wearing vests?
Confirm that Goulet had been taken into custody for another reason prior to this?
The criminal history information that I have on Mr. Goulet is that he had been taken into custody for misdemeanor public intoxication within the last week. Again, the officers were investigating misdemeanor conduct that was alleged by Goulet, and his prior contacts with local law enforcement were misdemeanor only. Sir?
Were the slain officers wearing vests?
I can't answer that information, that question right now. I don't have that information.
Sheriff,
Were they aware of his past criminal
if
history?
Goulet was a former military member, military police or Marine?
We have investigators going deep into the background of Goulet. I don't have that specific information as to whether or not he was a former military officer. I'm going to take one more question.
Sure.
Yes, sir.
Well, you said he made some statements to you people prior to you knowing. Did he make any indication that this was an attempt to suicide by cop?
The information that we have was just that Goulet was despondent, distraught, upset about his recent personal events. The people that we've spoken to that had contact with him characterize his personality as being angry, as being